Greetings, Kindred. I am Voivode Maquette, and welcome back to our World of Darkness and another episode of Level by Level in the Advanced Discipline playlist. These are the Amalgams. These are the disciplines that come together to create something wholly new and completely rare to most Kindred. That being said, tonight we're going to be working on the Level 5 Auspex power of Possession. This is Auspex 5 mixed with the Amalgam of Dominate 3. You have to have at least the 3rd level of Dominate to acquire this power, which is completely interesting to me because in the older systems, Possession was just the 5th level of Dominate. It was the advanced Dominate practice that anybody who had said discipline could participate in. The old clan Zamitzi, the Ventru, the Giovanni, they all had access to this type of power. But now, it being more of a selective discipline due to the fact that it's an amalgam, the clans that most naturally would come up with this are, strangely enough, the Malkavian, and also the Tremere, who have Dominate and Auspex inherent in their blood. And these are definitely powers that I can see the Tremere using, because they're not the kindliest of Kindred, now are they? But now when I look at this, and I think that Dominate plus Auspex power, it really does ring true that think of the trouble that a Malkavian could cause with this, and also considering the Salubri, because of their soul-stealing rumored nature. Them taking hold of someone to solve the problems for them because they care so much could yet again be another one of those things that a Salubri does that they think is helping, which is actually truthfully just causing more trouble. The book states, with this power, the vampire can strip the will of a mortal and completely possess their body, using it as their own. While the mind of the subject remains hidden to the vampire, they can do anything and go anywhere the subject could while the power remains active. Using this, a vampire can even experience the sunlight, food, and physical sexuality long denied them, their host paying the price for whatever abuse the vampire wreaks on their body while riding it. That is very cool. The idea that a vampire is using a mortal vessel to experience what it is to be mortal again is a very interesting concept that you don't see in games very often. At least I don't, as a storyteller who's been playing Vampire the Masquerade and running Vampire the Masquerade since 2003. It's just not something that comes up very often. I've seen possession in use, but it's mostly been for message passing or being able to get into places that a kindred would typically have problems. This seems so much more addictive. The idea of humanity or mortality being a drug for vampires seems like something that they could possibly do and get away with. And it brings to mind, yet again for me, and I know everybody hears this from me and they're probably tired of it, but the Mask of the Red Death trilogy, where 2 ancient 4th generation kindred were what you call sleepers. They slept and they lived through their servants. The true Bruja who became a lavish entrepreneur and suspected ghoul for a Sabbat archbishop, but lived a life of complete luxury, sleeping in, waking up with the windows open and the sun cascading on them, having French toast. Like, they were living the extravagant yet simple life of a human and enjoying every minute of it. Where then again, the other one, who was a Cappadocian, if I remember correctly, had survived throughout the ages, pretending to be the Prince of the Cities, I think Baltimore, Maryland, but I might be wrong on that one. The Prince of the City's pet mage, because he knew a little bit of magic, enough, some parlor tricks to fool the Kindred, but he was living his life as a detective and living in like a small house and just enjoying the simplicity of being human, but also keeping involved with vampire life. And that's exactly what this kind of thing does. But let's go ahead and check on what the ruling is to see how long this can last. The cost is 2 Rouse Checks. 2 Rouse Checks to completely switch bodies into a mortal. The dice pools are Resolve plus Auspex versus Resolve plus Intelligence. The more I think about it, the more the idea of Auspex makes sense, because Auspex is psychic ability. The Dominate makes sense too, because you're domineering over the subject's soul and taking over their body. This is very much like the animalism power of Subsume the Spirit, but on humans. The system states, this power can only be used on mortals. If the mortal is a ghoul, they must first be bloodbound to the user. Before possession can begin, the vampire must have eye contact with their victim. The user then engages in a Resolve plus Auspex versus Resolve plus Intelligence conflict with the victim in order to inhabit their body. If the vampire player rolls a total failure, the victim becomes immune to further possessions for the duration of the story. Once the vampire inhabits the body of the victim, their own body falls into a torpor-like trance, completely unaware of their surroundings and their own physical state, except for aggravated damage, which breaks the trance and ends the effects. A vampire possessing a mortal can use Auspex, Presence, and Dominate through them. If the user wishes to extend possession into daytime, they must make a roll to stay awake. Failure to stay awake ends the power. Any aggravated damage to the subject also risks ending the possession. The user must succeed in a Resolve plus Auspex roll, difficulty 2 plus damage taken, to stay in control. If the subject dies during possession, the resulting spiritual trauma immediately causes the user to sustain 3 levels of aggravated damage to their willpower. This power does not give the user the ability to read the mind, use the skills, or emulate the manners of the victim. Any skill employed use the possessing vampire's rating. The user must make a manipulation plus performance versus wits plus insights roll to successfully impersonate the victim's manners, expressions, and the like. Finally, possession violates the victim even more profoundly than a blood bond. The storyteller should consider awarding stains for this action. This is actually a pretty cool thought, the whole process of how this works. If the victim is a ghoul, they have to be bloodbound to the person who's possessing, which means that the blood of other vampires will fully stop the possession. It will block it. And then also, if you fail an attempt to possess, it basically builds a calloused mind for a time, for the story, and stops that individual from being possessed at all. Now, there's also a detail on this that states that you have to have eye contact with the individual that you are possessing, signifying that this is a Dominate-related power, because most Dominate involves eye contact. Now, that being said, there is a level of Dominate that allows you to bypass the need for eye contact. If you had that, I would say it's up to storyteller discretion to not have to worry about that. But also, I believe that has to deal with the blood bond. I do believe that if you were dealing with somebody who is bloodbound to you, I personally would not demand the eye contact. That's not in the book, that's just my own personal opinion. And with that, I also see that this kind of draws attention to the concept of subsume the spirit animalism, which I was pointed out very recently by one of our community members, that it does not say anything anywhere in the actual writing of that discipline in the core book that you need eye contact, that you need eye-to-eye contact with the animal that you are possessing. In my thought, I think you should have some kind of closeness to the animal. I think that you should probably have eye contact or physical contact, perhaps even stroking, petting the animal, due to the fact that if you were just to say, oh, I want to possess this thing, just you being able to possess any animal anywhere was too much. Maybe if you were bloodbound, you could extend, or if you were using the Auspex discipline of shared senses on something, it would be easier to put your soul into their body, even if you were not in direct contact with them. That being said, the duration of this power is until ended, voluntary or involuntary. Now, going into what it says, that if your character is falling asleep during the daytime, you do have to roll a power to stay awake. It does not say anything about that actually ending the possession. You could actually just fall asleep during the daytime. Rolling a test to stay awake, in my opinion, would actually just cause you to be able to remain active during the day and not be groggy. But given the fact that it's so loosely put, this could mean that you're being jetted out of the possessed subject and back into your body. I don't think I would do that. I think I would allow the vampire consciousness to truly stay inside of a human form as long as they can without taking aggravated damage or without the human being injured in some fashion or being forced out in some other way. I like the idea of a vampire who has hit 5th level of their power having almost godlike gifts, considering the fact that this system seems to have gotten rid of elders, at least for the time being. If anybody from the world of darkness watches these videos, I really, really hope that at some point in time we do get an elder guide, even though elders are not typically able to play. The fact that characters such as Helena, who has come back from the beckoning, her character sheet does not show her having anything past the 5th level of a discipline. Now, in my game, the way that we handled that was because we did have Deacon Royce, who was an Elder Lasombra, 8th generation. We stated that he could, at which point, go back and buy a level of the discipline that he had not bought before, giving him that 6th level of a power and making it that much more terrifying. Now, anything that has hit a Methuselah or higher level should definitely have some groundbreaking powers that are specific only to vampires of that level, not just a repeat of what they could have. But in my game, for right now, if for some reason there was an active elder, which currently there is not due to the fact that Deacon Royce had been taken by the beckoning and he is now gone, I think myself, if you were an 8th generation, I would allow you to go back and buy a 6th level of your discipline. If you were 7th generation, you could buy yet another additional 6th additional, and then 5th generation you would start coming into more godlike superpowers, such as like the Lasombra being able to create those tidal waves of shadow that wash throughout entire areas and suck everything into the abyss, because that's a cinematic monster level power. Storytellers use discretion on that because you don't want it to be too terrifying. You definitely want your players to have some type of plot armor as it is. But I am going way, way off topic. That sounds like the subject to a vampire bite, and maybe I'll do that. This has been possession. Possession is such a neat power, and it seems to go and just go. It doesn't stop. This power allows you to experience the pains and pleasures of being immortal yet again, which I can see as being one of the most addictive things a Kindred could ever hope to do. I am Voivode Maquette. This is Our World of Darkness, and level by level, the Amalgams, the advanced powers of Vampire the Masquerade. If you have used possession, I would love to hear about it. Storytellers or players alike, you guys all have the most amazing stories to tell, and they have inspired me to put things in my game. And yes, please let me know what you think, and I will see you next time. Class dismissed.